type a message. Are we back? It's saying that are we back? Void, are we back, Void? Cause it's not saying I'm online on Twitch. Okay. Well, I don't know why it's marking the comments as if we're back. I'm gonna say we're back then. Alright, hello everybody, I'm Bigger Gamer Magic, and tonight we're doing some live deck building. We're building Helga's Skittish Seer, so if you want to suggest some cards for us to put on our Moxfield page, please suggest some cards, put them in the comments, I'll talk about them, and if I talk about them, they'll get put into a dated Moxfield deck list. And you can know which one he's contributed to, because the dated Moxfield deck list will have a date on it. Yeah. T-Witch the same. T-Witch is the same. Yeah, it's, if you want to head to the link tree over on TikTok, you can see me in a crispier, nicer quality webcam. I'm using two PCs. One's running Twitch. Running TikTok. Thank you. Thank you for making the jump for me. My personal goal is to beat Rip Pull Repeat and have more Twitch followers than him. We both have under 100, and I am like 6 behind him. So my personal goal is to beat Rip Pull Repeat. Voidless Bro says Bridgeworks Battle. Bridge Works Battle. Bridgeworks Battle. Bridgeworks Battle is okay, we got an MDFC. The other side's a land that's halves for green. You can have it enter untapped, but you gotta pay 3 life. The sorcery says, for 3 mana, mono green, target creature you control gets +2/+2. Until end of turn, it fights with the one target creature you don't control. 10 out of 10, I'd play this all day. I love it, actually. I really love these MDFCs they printed in Modern Horizons 3, and also Zendikar Rising. They're really good. Oh, great. Okay, Void, so you can see me again? It's still not showing me as online on Twitch and YouTube, but you can see me, which is... It's Rip Pull Repeat! I spoke of him and he appeared. Rip Pull Repeat, as you know, you're my rival, and I'm attempting to leverage my TikTok following to acquire more Twitch followers than you. Because you're pretty untouchable to me on every other platform, but here. And I'm catching up with you, Rip Pull Repeat. You better watch out. I'm gonna get ya. I have appeared, yep. If you guys want to check out some great rules videos and some other Magic the Gathering humor, please check out my friend Rip. He does complex rules analysis with citations. He has judges working for him. He also has a very poppin' off Discord. He's a vibe and you should check him out. But after you follow me, because my goal is to get more Twitch followers than Rip Pull Repeat. May I ask you a quick... Yeah, SMOGNW over on TikTok says you may ask me a question. You can ask me anything you want, dude. Inga and Essica. Schwa4112 says Inga and Essica. Inga and Essica came out during March of the Machine. They're Simic and they're rad because they say that creatures you control can tap for mana. And whenever you cast a creature spell, if there are more mana from creatures was meant to cast it, you draw yourself a card. This thing's great. It's a great way to kind of double up on our Helga triggers because Helga has that trigger. Whenever we cast a creature spell with CMC 4 or greater, we get that draw trigger and we gain a little bit of life. This thing, because Helga taps for oodles and boodles of mana with her activated ability, it meets the requirements for Inga and Essica. We'll be drawing a card off Inga and Essica, and if they meet the requirements of Helga's trigger, we're going to get that as well. So we could potentially be drawing 2 cards per spell as opposed to 1. Thank you so much for the follow, SMO. I appreciate it. I am Bigger Gamer Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic the Gathering videos here on TikTok and also in other places in light of the ban. So if you'd like to see where live deck building is now and you want to see a nice crispy webcam image on my new webcam, instead of the blurry stuff I'm making you look at on TikTok, please head on over to my Twitch. Y'all can get there via the link tree and you can see my fancy overlays. I put frogs on it just for y'all. So let's talk about the Ozolith. So both of the Ozoliths go excellent in a Helga deck because they both care about counters. My favorite Ozolith is this one because this one's $12 instead of $50, and it says if a +1/+1 counter would be put on an artifact or a creature you control, that many +1 are put on that instead. That's Hardened Scales. Before the break, we talked a little bit about Hardened Scales effects and how they're stapling the Hardened Scales effects onto more creatures, artifacts, and enchantments, which is great. especially if your +1/+1 counter build relies on +1/+1 counters being put on things in tiny triggers, a lot like how our commander Helga does it. Helga gets 1 counter every time we cast a creature spell of mana value 4 or greater. So this thing's great. It's also taps for mana equal to onto Helga. Helga's going to tap for even more mana. Here's the OG Ozolith. Excuse me, it's not $50. It's $35. It's also a great candidate for a proxy. I'm a Printing Proxies affiliate. Check out Printing Proxies if you don't want to spend $35 on a singular 1-mana artifact. This is the Ozolith. It says whenever a creature leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put the counters on the Ozolith. And if at the beginning of your combat, if there's counters on the Ozolith, you get to put the counters wherever you want. It's great, y'all. It's $35. A lot of Jorah-like decks and artifact Stormy decks really want this thing because it's a 1-mana artifact and it has kind of a relevant effect. It's really cool. I also heard it's played in other formats, but I don't know nothing about other formats. I'm strictly a Commander person. SMO, thank you so much for making the jump over to Twitch. I really appreciate it. SMO, thank you. SMO says, my question is, what's your favorite zombie card? Rooftop Storm. So I actually didn't know about this thing until we actually did some live deck techs on zombies. We built Esper zombies, and we also built Dimir zombies. Simic Ascendancy is rad. Let's talk about Simic Ascendancy. If I can spell it. Okay. Simic Ascendancy is like, it's a 2-mana enchantment. It's in Simic colors. It's a win con. But Rooftop Storm, back to the zombie question for SMO. Thank you for jumping on over to Twitch, SMO. Make sure to hit follow so I can beat Rip Pull Repeats. Yeah, Rooftop Storm is a 6-mana mono blue enchantment, and it lets you cast your zombies for 0 mana. And it still gives you the cast trigger because their mana cost is 0, so you still get the zombie cast triggers. It's great. Highly recommend Rooftop Storm. It came out a while ago, but it got reprinted in the Wilhelt Commander deck pre-con that came out with Crimson Vow. It's great. This is Simic Ascendancy. It's a 2-mana Simic enchantment, and it is itself a win con, which is great, because this thing's only $1. It says 3 mana, put a counter on target creature you control, and whenever one or more counters are put on that creature, on a creature you control, put that many counters on Simic Ascendancy. And at the beginning of your upkeep, Simic Ascendancy has 20 counters. You've won the game. It's great, especially if we're leaning into a +1/+1 counter synergy build. If your friends are the kinds of people who run stacks and try to stop combat from happening, this is a great alternate win con in your +1/+1 counter build. I typically don't run alternate win cons because I'm a little bit of a combat purist, but this is great. It's great, y'all. It also has an activated ability that lets you put +1/+1 counters on things. Galta and Mavrin. Galta and Mavrin is great. Galta and Mavrin. Galta and Mavrin. Galta and Mavrin are $3. It's 7 mana, and it's in Selesnyan colors in white and green. And it says trample 12/12. And on attack, you get to either create a tapped and attacking big dinosaur, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures, or you make a bunch of 1/1 lifelinking vampires, where X is the number of attacking creatures. 10 out of 10 would recommend. This thing is a board in a box. It's 1 creature, it's 7 mana. It's a high mana investment, but that's not going to be hard for us to get to, because Helga can make oodles and boodles of mana, especially if we can slam some counters on her. This thing's amazing. I personally like having a little life gain, so I make the little guys. I go for the little guys. I like having little guys. Over on TikTok, Daddy Deuce 83 says Bonnie Paul. Bonnie Paul. Hey everybody, I'm Bigger Gare Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic Gathering content on TikTok, Twitch, everywhere where content's being made, especially in other places that aren't TikTok in light of the ban. On live, I do community deck building. We're building Helga Skittish Seer, and if you want to see any of the cards we talked about, check out my Moxfield page that's in the profile link tree, if you want to see any of the cards that we talked about tonight. Also, if you want to suggest some commanders, or vote on the poll for live deck building tomorrow for what commander we're going to talk about, that's also in the Discord as well, which is on the link tree. This is Bonnie Paul, as suggested by Daddy Deuce. It's a 6 mana giant scout with reach. It's a 6/5, and when it enters the battlefield, we make a legendary blue ox called Bow. And this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. Great, we got a Simic Landfall Commander. This is a reference to Paul Bunyan of the American mythos. Whenever you attack, draw a card, then you may put a land card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. This thing's great. It's a Simic Landfall Commander. It wants you to play a bunch of lands. Your Ox is going to get big and beefy in accordance with all the lands. It's 2 legendary creatures for the price of 1. It's a vibe, y'all. It's a vibe. I like it. I don't hate it. It's a bit simple. It's $2. If you are, yeah, it's Paul Bunyan, right? It's a Paul Bunyan reference, I think. Okay. Cool suggestion. Pup Maestro, thank you so much for making the jump over, Pup. You're a very good boy. I appreciate you doing that for me. Oh my god, I am so behind on comments. I am so sorry, guys. Enduring Innocence. The real Hi says Enduring Innocence. Enduring Innocence is the white glimmer. It's $10. It's 3 mana. It's mono white. It's a sheep glimmer. It's an enchantment creature. It's got lifelink. It's a 2/1, and it's got a triggered ability whenever 1 or more other creatures you control with power 2 or less enter, draw a card. It triggers only once each turn. So when I think about this thing, I want tokens. I want little boy. I want little guys. I want little buys. I want like hobbits, and I want bunches of them. This thing wants those triggers. I want to be able to make them on my opponent's turn as well. I don't think I'd play this in Helga, because like it cares about little things. Helga kind of cares about big creatures in the form of having CMC 4 or greater. This thing kind of cares about little guys, little boys. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe if we lean really heavily into a token theme with Helga, this could be a vibe. Something I love about most of the Glimmers, or at least Glimmers in the enduring cycle of Glimmers, is that they got to be got twice. You gotta kill them twice. Because when this thing dies, while it's a creature, it comes back as a non-creature enchantment. It's great, y'all. Hey, yo. Mine is mill heavy. Zapolta. Zatalpa's crazy. I often just think of this as keyword dinosaur soup. It's an 8 mana elder dinosaur with flying, vigilance, double strike, trample, and indestructible. I once lost to a child playing this as a mono white Voltron deck. It got me good. This thing is a lot more dangerous than it looks. Don't think just because it's a 4/8, it ain't nothing. It's something, and if you slam a few swords on it, it's gonna get some crazy ass triggers. Oh, Dark Ronin, we just talked about the Ozolith a moment ago. We actually talked about both of the Ozoliths. We talked about the green one from March of the Machines, and also the original one from Ikoria. We talked about them kind of recently, too. Hey, everybody, I'm Bigger Gayer Magic, and if you want to suggest some cards for our Helga Skittish Seer deck, please put them in the comments. If I talk about your card, it'll get put into a Moxfield deck list, and y'all can see all the suggestions that we talked about so far tonight on a dated deck list on my Moxfield page, and y'all can get there via the link tree. The link tree's not on Twitch. Twitch doesn't like the link tree. The link tree's only on TikTok. I'm still working on it. Tyrannus Rex. Optic Dread says Tyrannus. Oh, wait, no. Voidless Void says Tyrannus Rex. Tyrannus Rex. Tyrannex. Please be spelled correctly. Void, you're the GOAT. Tyrannus Rex is a Phyrexian dinosaur. This rad art version is $9. It's 7 mana. And it says Toxic 4, Trample, Ward 4, and Haste. It's a spicy green creature. It's a big boy. It's got Haste and Trample. It's got 8 power. It's a threat all by itself. It's hasty. It's got Toxic, which makes people uncomfortable. Even if you're not running Infect counters, or if you're not running Infect at all in the deck, still running this thing is still really spicy, and it can still be a Toxic threat, because other people can be running Poison counters, and this thing having Toxic 4 is really significant. especially with other people running poison counters. And it can't be countered. And it can't be countered. Needs must be remarked. It can't be countered. Optic Dread says Kiora, Behemoth, Beckoner. Kiora, Behemoth, Beckoner. Is this the March? No? Okay. I love this card. I think this card's amazing. It's a 3-mana Simic Walker, 2 generic, and a hybrid pip. It's got an activated ability. It enters with 7 loyalty. It also has a triggered ability. The triggered ability says whenever you cast a creature with power 4 or greater, whenever a creature power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. You can draw multiple cards off this trigger in a turn. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's so good, yo. And also, -1. Untap something. I wonder what we're going to untap. Probably our commander that can tap for 12 mana. This thing's crazy. I love this thing. It's one of my favorite ways to untap creatures with activated abilities. It is so good, y'all. Highly recommend. It's $1. It came out in War of the Spark. It's great. Y'all should play it. Y'all should play it. Even if you're not untapping creatures with an activated ability, it says untap target permanent. It can untap lands. It can untap lands. It's great. It's amazing. Pup Maestro says Felidar Sovereign. Okay, is that who we're choosing to be today? Felidar Sovereign is a win con. It's a 6-mana mono white $3 cat beast with vigilance and lifelink. And at the beginning of your upkeep, if you got 40 or more life, you've won the game. This thing's amazing. I lost to this card so much when I first started playing Commander. It's hard, especially because you start the game with 40 life. Spoilers alert, if you've never played Commander before, you start with 40 life. So this thing can win a game. If they find a way to cheat it out in the early game before you can damage them, they can just win with it. It's great. If I have to say something positive about this card, I really like that the flavor text, not the flavor text, I really like that there's a reminder text for the keywords. That's cool. I'm not a big fan of this because I've lost to it so many times. Thank you so much for the follow over there on TikTok. I appreciate it. Hey everybody, I am Bigger Gamer Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic the Gathering videos on lots of platforms now that TikTok's getting banned. And if you want to do some live deck building with me, you can put some suggestions for our Helga deck in the comments. If I talk about your card, it'll get put into a Moxfield deck list, and y'all can check out the Moxfield page via the link tree. You can also check out the Discord via the link tree. We're going to do a poll tomorrow to see what deck we're going to talk about tomorrow night in the Discord. That's in the link tree. This is Fauna Shaman. It's a 2-mana Elf Shaman. It's a 2/2. It's $4. You can tap it, pay a green, discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. This thing's great. I typically build away from this thing because it makes a deck very consistent. Like, if you know the best creatures in your deck, you can use your Fauna Shaman, you can search them up, you can slam them in your hand, and then you can plop them on the battlefield really easily with Helga, because Helga makes oodles and boodles of mana. It's great. It's objectively good. I just don't like running a bunch of tutor effects because I find it makes the deck samey and also kind of... It makes it samey. You know what? It makes it samey. It makes playing the deck like a similar experience every time, the more consistently you have tutors. I feel like that lends itself more to CEDH, but that's just me. Voidless Void says Greater... I love Greater Good. Greater Good is Greater Geed. Greater Good. Spelling is hard. I got big fingers. Alright. Greater Good... What? Oh my god. Okay, Greater Good is a 4-mana mono green enchantment. And we have this here version right here. It must be the most recent Secret Lair. It's not in English. It says sacrifice a creature. You draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and then you have to discard 3 cards. It's great. It's an enchantment. This version's $5. This art is actually really incredible now that I'm actually looking at it. That's actually great art. It's cool. It's a vibe. It's a great card in decks where you have a few disposable big boys. You want to dispose of a big boy, Greater Good is a great way to dispose of a big boy. That version's only $5. Equinox Paradox, good to see you, my friend. Unbound Flourishing. Unbound Flourishing. Unbound Flourishing. Unbound Flourishing is a $20 3 mana mono green enchantment, and I don't recognize that set symbol. But whenever you cast a permanent spell with a mana value that contains an X, double the value of X. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell or activate an ability, if the mana cost of that ability's activation cost contains X, copy that spell or ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. This thing's amazing. This thing goes great in an X spell deck. There is a Sultai deck, which is a lot like Helga, except it's a Hydra tribal thing. This thing is a great card in that. It doubles your X spells. It makes your X creatures bigger, y'all. It's so good. It's so good. It's $20, so it's well within proxy territory for me, but it's so good, y'all. Printing Proxies affiliate here. If you want to get a proxy, head on over to Printing Proxies. Biophagus. Optic Dread says Biophagus. Hey, everybody on Twitch. I just want to thank you guys. These lives, when I first started on Twitch, I was really unsuccessful. I didn't have a lot of viewers. I really appreciate you guys all making the jump on over to Twitch. I really appreciate you coming back, even after we took a break today. Thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate you. This is Biophagus. It came out in the Warhammer 40k expansion. It's a mono green human tyrannid wizard. It's a 1/3, and you can tap it. You add 1 mana of any color. And if this mana is spent to cast a creature spell, that creature enters with an additional +1/+1 counter. 10 out of 10. It's a mana dork. It gives things their first counters. We already saw a ton of cards that double the amount of counters on our creatures. This is a great way to get that first counter. It's great. It's similar to Helga, except the counters put on the thing we cast. It's great. It's great. You just call it? What did you just... Righteous Aura. Lunar Lean says Righteous Aura. Righteous Aura. Righteous Aura. Righteous Aura is a 2 mana old 40-cent mono white enchantment with an activated ability where we pay a single white mana, pay 2 life, prevent all damage to you from any one source. It's great. It's not stacks. It's a little bit of a lockout piece. It does make you pay life. It feels fair. Tyler Owen, thank you very much for the follow. I recognize you've hung out with me before, Tyler. Thank you for coming by. If you guys are joining me over on TikTok, please make the migration over to Twitch. The camera quality isn't garbage on Twitch, I promise. Yeah, so because Twitch isn't getting banned, we've moved the show on over to Twitch. Yeah, this enchantment's great. It's a great way to stop your opponents. Helga's got a little bit of life gain built into her triggered ability when we cast big creatures. So if we have a little bit of more life gain, we can lock out a game with this. So it says from any one source. So that's not just creatures. If people are trying to spell sling us out and maybe do like a big crackle with power or a big delayed blast fireball, this thing can stop that damage as well. Very cool suggestion. It's 40 cent. I don't think I'd run it because if you get enough life gain and you have enough mana, you lock your opponents out of the game, and that feels a little bit sweaty to me. But it's objectively a really good card, and I imagine you could have some really spicy tech with it. Goreclaw, Equinox Paradox says Goreclaw. So we talked about Goreclaw a little bit. So Goreclaw is a 4 mana bear. We love those here. It's a 4/3. Creature spells you cast a power 4 or greater. It costs 2 less to cast. It's great. It cares about big spells, kind of like Helga, but in a different way. Helga cares about the mana value. This thing cares about the power. This thing also, when it attacks, each creature you're with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1, gains trample. It's a great way to give board-wide trample. It's real good. Oh god, Dark Ronin, what'd you say? Dark Ronin says, Herald of the Secret Streams. Herald of the Secret Streams. Herald of the Fair, Herald of the Secret Streams. Herald of the... Hey, Kai Brazil! Everyone please, if everyone could please thank Kai Brazil. He is one of my Discord moderators. He helps bring bigger, gayer magic to you. Thank you, Kai Brazil, for stopping by. I appreciate you, man. Herald of the Secret Streams. Herald of... Why is Herald of the Secret Streams not coming up? Herald of... Secret Stream. Maybe not the Secret Streams. Just, yeah, Herald of Secret Streams. This thing's amazing. It says creatures with +1/+1 counters on it can't be blocked. We have built really heavily into a +1/+1 counter themed hill here. And this thing says that your creatures can't be blocked as long as they got a +1/+1 counter. Excellent suggestion. I'm sorry I missed it. What else we got, Twitch homies? Herald is so good, Lunar Leam. Because I'd say Doppelgang. Gosh, Doppelgang. Doppelgang endgame. Doppelgang endgame. Doppelgang hard spell. Doppelgang is a Simic sorcery. Gosh. It's a Simic... Okay, maybe it has 1 P instead of 2 Ps. Doppelgang, symbol P, is a Simic sorcery. It's got XSX, which means that you want to spend oodles and boodles of mana into this thing. You want to put silly amounts of mana. You want to put a game-ending amount of mana into this thing. And when you do see this thing cast with a bunch of mana, it is game-ending. Because it says for each of X target permanents, they ain't even gotta be your permanents. They can be your opponent's permanents. You make X tokens that are copies of it. So if you spend a total of 17 mana into this thing, you make 5 copies of 5 targets for a total of 25 tokens. It's game-ending. It's brain-breaking. It makes you do math. It's also got a complicated cost in the form of the 3X's, but it's a very fun spell. It ends the game almost as soon as it's cast. I once won a game with this spell, and I did it by copying an Aristocrats Tokens player's deck, pretty much. They had, like, a Blood Artist and some other thing. I copied the Blood Artist and the other thing, and I had enough death triggers on all the stuff to win the game. It was crazy. End Raise Forerunners from Pup Maestro. End Raise Forerunners. It's Craterhoof at home. It's Craterhoof if he was 99 cents instead of $40. It's a 7-mana mono-green boar with Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. And when End Raise Forerunners enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance until end of turn. It's great. Craterhoof is like the OG. It enters, it gives everything Trample, and it makes him huge. This thing doesn't make him huge. It makes him a little bit bigger. It gives him Trample. It gives him Vigilance. It's often an endgame card. It's great. It makes your board spicy. It gives him Trample and Vigilance. Wish it gave him Haste, but it doesn't. Coma. Optic Dread says Coma. Which Coma? We got 2 now. Coma... New okay, here's Old Coma. Old Coma, 7 mana. It's a 6/6. It can't be countered at the beginning of each upkeep. That triggers on your opponent's turn, sweeties. This thing makes a 3/3 on everybody's turn, not just ours. Sacrifice another serpent at instant speed. Sacrifice your serpents at instant speed. Coma gains indestructible, or tap target permanent, and its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Coma's oppressive. Coma is crazy good, y'all. If you get sat across a Coma deck, don't hold back. Here's New Coma. New Coma isn't so bad. New Coma is 7 mana. It's an 8/12. It can't be countered. It's got Trample and Ward 4. And whenever Coma deals combat damage to a player, you make 4 3/3s. Much more fair, much more balanced. Yeah, especially if you're running doubling season. I love Patriarch's Seal. Shisher, too, thank you very much for stopping by on Twitch. I appreciate it. Hello, everybody. I am Bigger Gayer Magic, and on lives, we do community deck building. Tonight, we are building Helga Skittish Seer from Bloomborough. It's a Bant Creatures deck, and we want to cast creature spells with mana value 4 or greater in our Helga deck. And when we do that, Helga gets a counter, we gain a life, and we draw a card. This is Patriarch's Seal. It's great for Helga, because Helga taps for mana equal to its power. We can use Patriarch's Seal to untap Helga to make oodles and boodles of mana. It's super synergistic in our Helga deck. Great suggestion. Hello, everybody. If you're just now joining me, I am Bigger Gayer Magic. I use green screen effects and other nonsense to make silly little Magic the Gathering videos on TikTok and wherever we're making TikTok videos after the ban. If you want to suggest a card for our live deck tech, please do. And if we talk about it on live, it will be put into a Moxfield deck list with a dated stamp, so you know which one you contributed to. And, yeah, that's that. Thank you for hanging out with me. The show has been moved from Twitch, even though it did start on TikTok. Here is Tanazir Kondrix. It's an Elder Dragon 4/4 for 5 mana. It's $1, and it is the gayest looking dragon I ever did see. It's an Elder Dragon with flying and trample, and whenever it enters the battlefield, double the number of +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. It would be great to target Helga with this ability, because Helga can tap for oodles and boodles of mana. Thank you for the follow, Ethan, over on TikTok. Appreciate it. And whenever this thing attacks, you may have the base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to this thing's power and toughness until end of turn. It's good. It's spicy. It's one of the Dragon Deans from Strixhaven. I'm glad it's $1. It's giving Dragon Drag Queen to me. And whenever this thing attacks, you may have its base power and toughness of other creatures you control become equal to this thing's power and toughness. A vibe. A vibe. And if we slam some counters on it, that trigger is going to be even more impactful. Oh, Optic Dread, Chulane. Chulane is the original Bant Creatures Matter commander. It says whenever you cast a creature spell, you draw a card, and then you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Pay 3, return target creature you control to its owner's hand. It's great, y'all. Chulane decks just provide so much value. It's like a 5-mana version of Helga. It's great, y'all. And it lets you slam down lands. So we spam for tapping the commander. So do we want spam for tapping the commander? Yeah, Ivan Jumper. It's so good to see you on Twitch. Thank you for making the jump, my friend. I appreciate you. Yeah, Ivan. Yeah, we talked about Patriarch Seal. We talked about Kiora, the Behemoth Caller, which can untap things. Ivan, I'm sure you know that I already love activated abilities, especially once I consider tapping, because then you can just untap it and you can do the thing over and over again. Highly recommend. Runati. Is this the lion? Is he the lion? Yeah, he's the lion. He's a cat shaman. He's a 1/3. He's 3 mana. He's mono green. He says whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 5 or greater, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional counters on it, where X is its mana value -4. This thing's great. It taps for mana. It puts counters on things. We are a full-on +1/+1 counter guild with our commander Helga here. Our commander Helga is a mana dork, and it can have for oodles and boodles of mana because of counters. This thing cares about counters, and creatures you control with 3 or more counters on them have haste. 10 out of 10, would recommend. It's a silly little dork. It's $7. It's a good time. It's a cat shaman. Austere Command. So, Austere Command. Austere Command is a $1.50. It's a 6 mana mono white board wipe. And the cool thing about Austere Command is it's modal. It's got a bunch of different abilities. We get to choose 2. So we can destroy all artifacts, all enchantments, all creatures with mana value 3 or less, or all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. This thing's amazing. So what I imagine us picking for this deck is, because Helga is a creature-based deck, and Helga makes mana. Most of the cards in Helga, I imagine, trigger Helga. Like, we want them to be 4-drop or higher creatures. So when we cost an Austere Command, I imagine we're going to pick one of these first 2 modes where we destroy all artifacts or all enchantments, and then we're going to pick the small creatures. I have a feeling that's what we're picking. That way we can retain our big board state. That's what I imagine, at least. M Polish says that Intruder Alert or Intruder Alarm? Okay, I'm pretty sure you mean Intruder Alarm, Polish. Or Polish, I don't know which one. Intruder Alarm is rad. It's a 3 mana mono blue enchantment, and it's really good at untapping your creatures with activated abilities, because it says creatures don't untap during their untap step, but whenever a creature enters the battlefield, we untap all creatures. So if a bunch of our creatures have activated abilities where we're tapping them to do stuff, this thing can untap all of them when our opponents play creatures, and then we can activate them during our opponent's turns. It's a lot of value. It's a good card. It's $3. Would recommend. Would play it. Thank you very much for the suggestion, Polish. Hey everybody on TikTok. Live deck building started on TikTok. I'm Bigger Gayer Magic. I use green screen effects to make content for Magic the Gathering and Magic the Gathering related content. If you want to hang out with me over on Twitch, where the camera quality isn't dog water, make the jump using the link tree on over to Twitch and suggest some cards. The overlays are a lot nicer. The quality is just better in general. Thank you for hanging out with me on TikTok. Also, if you want to help me get more followers on Twitch than Rip Pull Repeat does, please head on over to Twitch. Umbral Mantle. Umbral Mantle. Umbral Mantle is 3 mana. It's an equipment. It's $6. An equipped creature has pay 3 mana, untap it, and this creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. It has equip 0. So we saw this thing in an activated ability live we've done a few months ago. It's rad. It's different. It is legal in Commander. So that little untap symbol, it looks like a tap symbol because we don't see the untap symbol anymore, if we're being real. It doesn't get printed anymore. I think it only got printed a few times. You pay 3 mana, you can untap your creature. That's great. We can't use the mana that Helga produces, so we're probably not going infinite with Helga. Me personally, I don't want to go infinite anyway. It's great. It's a great way to untap Helga. Fash says Zapondrel. Zapondrel is crazy. Zapondrel ends games, y'all. Zapondrel Hunger Dominus is a legendary Phyrexian horror, $16 mono green, excuse me. It's a reaching 6. It's just reaching 4/6. And at the beginning of combat, double the power of toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. Happens on your opponent's turns too. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each of your creatures. It also has an activated ability where we can sacrifice 2 other creatures, put an indestructible counter on Zapondrel. It's great. It makes him hard to interact with. We can make him indestructible. He doubles the power and toughness every turn. That's great. In a +1/+1 counter deck, it can make the math a little hard. It can grind the math out. But it's a great card, y'all. I've lost to Zapondrel plenty of times. Oh, of course we talked about Viral the Whole Clad. We're going to pull up Viral the Whole Clad. Thank you, Ivan. I appreciate you doing it. We're going to talk about Viral the Whole Clad. We talked about Zimone, which is 2 Viral the Whole Clad stapled together, too. The one that just came out from Foundations. Viral the Whole Clad. Whole Clade. He is 3 mana. He's a Simic Merfolk. He is a 1/4. He's got an activated ability. We pay 2 mana in Simic colors, and we double the number of each kind of counter on target artifact, creature, or land. It's amazing. If we want to be super spicy and kind of group huggy, we can also double the amount of counters on our opponent's creatures with Viral. That's real spicy. That's really fun. There's a new Viral called Zimone. There's a new version of Zimone, and she is 2 Viral stapled together. And we're going to talk about her right quick. Yeah, yeah. This is 2 Virals of the Whole Clad stapled together. It came out in Foundations a few weeks ago. It's $1.50. It gives you a beginning of combat trigger to plop down a +1/+1 counter out up to 2 creatures. Then you can activate its ability for 2 mana. You can double the number of each kind of counter on up to 2 target creatures and or artifacts you control. It's great. It's 2 Virals stapled together. It's just 2 Virals stapled together. It's great. It's so good. Scooby Doofin! Scooby Doofin, I'm so glad. You have such a fun name to say, Scooby Doofin. Thank you for making this the jump on over to Twitch for me, Scooby. Holebreaker Horror. Holebreaker Horror. Guys, thank you so much. Really, I really do appreciate you. I was feeling somewhat disheartened when I first started doing Twitch. It was dead as hell. I really appreciate you guys making the jump for me. Thank you so much. Here's Holebreaker Horror. We're gonna upset some people with this thing. It's a 7 mana mono blue 7/8. Can't be countered. And whenever you cast a spell, you choose one. You return a spell you don't control to someone's hand, or you can return a non-land permanent to someone's hand. This thing can dominate a game. If someone is playing a Storm deck and they pop this off, they've won the game. It's crazy. It's a good card, y'all. It's not coming up with a price for some reason. Weird. I'm not sure why this one's not coming up with a price. It's cool. It's a great card. It's excellent as Spellslinger deck as a win con, not a commander or win con. As a win con. Protean Hulk. Vash says Protean Hulk. Protean Hulk. So if you are a CDH person, Protean Hulk is a great card. Even if you're not a CD purchase, if you just like value, Protean Hulk's cool. It's $7. It's 7 mana. It's a mono green beast 6/6. And when it dies, you search your library for a number of creature cards with total mana value 6, and you plop them right down onto the battlefield. So in CDH, Protean Hulk is often just killed. People find their combo pieces, and the game is over when Protean Hulk dies. That's been my experience of playing against Protean Hulk. I've never run Protean Hulk, because I'm not really a CDH person. It's a great card, and if you really know your deck, and you really know what your deck wants, it can just really help you win a game, especially if you can find a way to kill it. We haven't seen any sack outlets yet in this deck that I remember, but I'm sure we can find a way to kill it. And if nothing else, it's a 6/6 that can attack. Just bought Helga, gonna do the honor pure... Hell yeah, my name here. Rad username, my name here over on TikTok. Alright, Lanawar over on TikTok says a tribute to the World Tree. Tribute to the World Tree. Hello, TikTok friends. I'm Bigger Gamer Magic. I've been making green screen content for you for a little while. This is the tribute to the World Tree. If you want to see any of the TikTok suggestions or viewer suggestions from Twitch as well, y'all can check out the Moxfield page. Here's Tribute to the World Tree. It's $17. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. But its power is not 3 or greater, you get to slam 2 counters on it. This thing's amazing. It got print in March of the Machine. It's great. It can be a little difficult to cast at 3 green pips, but it's a good card, y'all. TikTok friends, if you want to make the jump on over to Twitch, y'all can use my link tree as well. Twitch is not getting banned as far as I know, and we are going to continue the live deck building show on over there. Ivan Jumper says the Ozolith. So the Ozolith is rad. We talked about the Ozolith a little bit earlier. The Ozolith is a $35 1-mana artifact. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, you put the counters on the Ozolith. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, you get a trigger to put the stuff on the Ozolith wherever you want to put it. It's great. It's $35. It's one of the best +1/+1 counter cards, but it's real expensive. Highly recommend a proxy. Tidespout Tyrant. Scooby Doofin over on Twitch says Tidespout Tyrant. Tidespout Tyrant is a rad little 8-mana mono blue 5/5 flying Jean, and whenever you cast a spell, you return target permanent to its owner's hand. Scooby Doofin, did you put it? Holebreaker Horror and then Tidespout Tyrant, Scooby Doofin. Scooby Doofin, I'm noticing a pattern. Whenever you cast a spell, you return target permanent to its owner's hand. So we talked about Holebreaker Horror. I normally see that in a Spellslinger deck. This is also where I see a Tidespout Tyrant. It's a win con. It can return target permanents to its owner's hand. At least Holebreaker Horror said non-land permanent. This thing returns land, y'all. If someone's storming off and they have this thing on the battlefield, you've lost the game. It's cool. It's great. It's great in just a creature deck in and by itself. It's $1, so it's like 1/7 of the cost of the Holebreaker Horror. Very cool. General Otaku, thank you very much for the follow over on TikTok. Hey, all TikTok friends. So I'm Bigger Gamer Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic the Gathering TikToks and also short form content. And on lives, we do live deck building. Our commander tonight is Helga Skittish Seer. And if you want to suggest any cards, please put them in the comments. If I talk about your suggestion, it's going to be put on the Moxfield deck list, and y'all can check out the link tree to check that out. If you want to come on over to Twitch where the camera quality is good, I promise you, it's a lot better on Twitch. Because TikTok's getting banned, we've moved the show on over to Twitch. So if you make that jump for me, thank you very much. And I appreciate all my Twitch homies being there for me and helping me get more Twitch followers than Rip, Pull, Repeat. This is Fangs of Colonia. It's a sorcery, it's 2 mana, it's mono green, and it says put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on each creature that had a +1/+1 counter put on it. This way, we can overload it for 6 mana, and if we overload it, you may cast a spell for its overload cost. Instead, you change the word target to each. So if you overload it for 6 mana, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on those creatures. It's great, y'all. It's great. Even if you're only just targeting one thing, we could cast this, target Helga, after Helga already had a counter on it after we cast something with her by tapping her for mana. And this is great. It's a way to double Helga's counters in the early game if we don't want to overload it. Very cool. And if we overload it with Helga on the battlefield anyway, she's going to get the counters. Oh no, for sure, Scooby Doofin is the problem. Vigor, we talked about Vigor. So Vigor is a must-answer card if it's on the battlefield. You will lose to this card if you are doing normal combat Magic the Gathering. If Vigor's on the battlefield under your opponent's control, it's a trampoline 6/6 for 6 green. It's a trampoline 6/6 for in mono green. It's a 6/6. It has trample, and if damage would be dealt to a creature you control, other than Vigor, you prevent that damage and you put a +1/+1 counter on that creature for each 1 damage prevented this way. It almost says your creatures are indestructible, but worse. If damage would be dealt to a creature you control, that's not just combat damage. So if someone casts a Blasphemous Act with Vigor on the battlefield, you're handing them the game. This thing's crazy. It's really hard to play against. You gotta remove it. If you're doing normal combat stuff, it's gotta be removed, y'all. It's great. It's $18. It's a proxy for me. I have one, and I stopped playing with it because it was too hard for my playgroup. I took it out for them. It is a difficult card to play around. It is really good, y'all. Stocking the Pantry. We're gonna Stocking the Pantry with Voidless Void. Stocking the Pantry. Stocking the Pantry is a mono green single mana enchantment. Whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put a supply counter on Stocking the Pantry. Pay 2, remove a supply counter from Stocking the Pantry, draw yourself a card. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature you control, yeah, 10 out of 10. So, Helga has a card draw trigger on her stapled already when we cast creature spells of mana value 4 or greater. This thing's cool. This is just more card draw. And when we put counters on things, we put supply counters here. Eventually, we're going to have a ton of mana. We can remove the counters from it, draw a bunch of cards with this thing. This is perfectly playable to me. It's got a rad art. It's very twee. It's very wholesome. That squirrel's wearing a coat. It's cool. I vibe. I vibe. Good card. Primal Surge. Primal Surge. Primal Surge. Primal Surge is a 10 mana mono green sorcery. And exile the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it onto the battlefield. Repeat the process. Cool. So if you can stack the top. Oh my god, this card's incredible. This card's amazing. Oh my god. Wait, can you deck yourself with this thing? You can deck yourself with this thing. You can deck yourself with this. Okay. Exile the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it onto the battlefield. If you do, repeat the process. This thing's amazing. This thing's $8. I love it. I would definitely run at least 2 or 3 instants or sorceries, or else you might deck yourself with this thing. Or if you want to just put your library on the top of on the battlefield, play only creatures, run Helga as your commander. This can be your only sorcery. And then you can slam your deck right on the table. Crazy. Great. That's a really interesting card, Scooby Doofin. Octotu says Verdurous Gearhulk, the Green Gearhulk. We're gonna talk about the Green Gearhulk. This thing came out in not Kaldheim, Kaladesh. Kaladesh, the plane, has gotten a new name that I don't remember, but the set that this thing came out in is Kaladesh. They changed the name because it's offensive, and I can get behind that. I should learn the new name, is what I just realized. Verdurous Gearhulk is 5 mana, it's green, it's a construct, it's a 4/4 with trample. When it enters the battlefield, you distribute 4 counters among any number of target creatures you control. It's great. We can put all those counters on Helga, and then we can use Helga to make a bunch of mana. We vibe! Wave goodbye. Vash says wave goodbye. Is this the counter board wipe? Yeah, I love this. This is a great... Vash, excellent suggestion. This is one of the best board wipes we could run. It's 4 mana, it's mono blue, it's only 4 mana. It's only 4 mana, oh my god. Return each creature without a +1/+1 counter on it to its owner's hand. It's amazing in a +1 counter deck. It's amazing. It's so good. It's a 4-mana board wipe and a +1/+1 counter deck. It's so good. It's so good. The squirrel is wearing a coat. Case of the Trampled Garden. Case of the Trampled Garden. Case of the Trampled Garden is not a saga, it's a class. It came out in Murders at Karlov Manor. Or no, it's not a class, it's a case, excuse me. When it enters the battlefield, you distribute 2 +1/+1 counters on creatures you want. And then to solve it, have something with power 8 or greater. And whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on a targeting creature. It gains trample until end of turn. I like this. It's a vibe. It's 40 cents. It gives you some counters. We can slam those counters right on Helga. Make her tap for a bunch of mana. Very cool card. Also, that attack trigger ain't so bad either. Crater Hoof. Okay, we all know what Crater Hoof. Alright, we're going to do Crater Hoof quick. Crater Hoof Behemoth is a win con. It's like 40 bucks. Yep, it's 40 bucks. It's a win con. It's 8 mana. It's mono green. It's a hasty 5/5. And when it enters the battlefield, you win the game. Because this thing enters, and in creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. And they also gain trample. It's a win con. If you can have it enter the battlefield again, you can stack the triggers. It's a great ability. It's a great thing to search up and plop right down onto the battlefield to win the game. It's considered CDH. It's 40 bucks. This art specifically went to charity, which is cool. Evolutionary Escalation. Evolutionary Escalation. Evolutionary Escalation is a 2-mana mono green enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, and 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature an opponent controls. It's $2. It's great. At the beginning of your upkeep, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, and 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature and opponent controls. This thing's great, actually. It feels fair, and it's a great way to politic in a commander game. If you feel like someone's a little bit behind, you can put counters on their creature as well. It's aggressively costed at 2 mana, and this is a great way to put 3 counters every turn. That's a significant amount of +1/+1 counters to be plopping down willy-nilly on an upkeep trigger. This thing's really cool. Very cool card. Evelyn Tepes says Intruder Alarm. Yeah, we talked about Intruder Alarm a little while ago. But Evelyn, thank you so much for hanging out with me on Twitch. This is Intruder Alarm. It's a 3-mana mono blue enchantment, and it's great for creatures that got activated abilities. Creatures you control don't untap during... Creatures don't untap during controller's untap step. But they do untap whenever something enters. So in a commander game, you have 4 opponents. That's a lot of opportunities for our opponents to untap our creatures during their turns. And when they do that, we can activate Helga. If we got Flash, we can slap down some creatures. We got some other activated abilities we can activate during their turn. It's going to be very spicy. This card is great in an activated ability deck. Great suggestion, Evelyn. Thank you for making the jump to Twitch for me. I appreciate it. Magus of the Mind. Magus of the Mind. Magus of the Mind. Magus of the Mind is a 6-mana human wizard 4/5. It's got an activated ability. You pay blue, you sacrifice your Magus of the Mind. You shuffle your library, and the next on the top X cards, where X is 1 plus the number of spells cast this turn. Until end of turn, you may play cards X out of the spay without paying for them. We are gonna have to read that again. That was complicated. It's 50 cents. Sack it. You X out of the top X, where X is 1 plus the number of spells cast this turn. So we cast a bunch of spells. We can finish this thing off. Okay, cool. I've never seen this thing before. This thing is a storm card, it appears to me. It's interesting. We can do creature storm with it. It can help us slam down a bunch of free stuff. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's budget at 50 cents, which I love. All right, guys. We have been going for a while. So we did take a break for human reasons. Mike Damone. The bottom card is blurry because we're not doing budget. EVS Pie, cute name. We are doing whatever you want to do. I am Bigger Gamer Magic, and Mike, card on the bottom is blurry because I'm Bigger Gamer Magic, and we're making the show jump from TikTok to Twitch. So the Twitch overlays are all crisp. I just got a new webcam. The show looks better than it ever has. And I'm using my new computer to do Twitch and my old shitty one to run TikTok. If you see a thing bouncing around asking you to make the jump for Twitch for me, it's a lot better on Twitch. Twitch isn't getting banned, so we're trying to move the show on over there. I'm Bigger Gamer Magic. I use green screen effects to make silly little Magic the Gathering videos on all kinds of platforms now that TikTok is getting banned. And on lives, we do community deck building. It's my favorite part of the community. You guys suggest commander cards. Our commander tonight is Helga, Skittish Seer. And if you want to suggest a commander card for Helga, please put it in the chat. If I talk about it, it will get put into a Moxfield deck list, and you guys can see the Moxfield deck list on the link tree. You can check out the data stamp on Moxfield to see which one you contributed to. And if you want to suggest commanders for lives, head to the Discord. Thank you for hanging out with me. This is Birthing Ritual. It's a rad little 2-mana enchantment, and it came out in Modern Horizons 3. It's $6, and it gives you a trigger at the beginning of your end step. If you control a creature, you look at the top 7 cards of your library, you may sacrifice a creature. And if you sacrifice a creature, you can take a creature you revealed and put it onto the battlefield if it's close enough in mana value. It's great. It's a great way to trade up your creatures in a creature deck. It's great. It's one creature every turn. You sacrifice it, and you maybe get something better. The reason that this card is so good is you get to look at what you're revealing before you decide to sacrifice the thing. Luminate Primordial. Luminate Primordial. So what I was saying, guys, we going for a while. We're going to do a few more suggestions and call it a night. Once again, I'm BGM. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is Luminate Primordial. It's 7 mana. It's mono white. It's a 4/7, and it's 50 cents. It's got Vigilance, and when it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, exile up to one target creature that player controls, and that player gains life equal to its power. I love this thing, actually. It's 50 cents. I have one in a binder, and I look at it, and I'm like, almost I'm going to play with you. It's cool. It's got a big Swords to Plowshares-like effect on it, on an ETB trigger. It says for each opponent. So in a commander game, you can Swords to Plowshares each of your opponents. They are gaining life because it is a Swords to Plowshares-like effect. But guys, my brothers in cards, if you can blink this thing, if you can recur this thing, if you can make this thing enter the battlefield multiple times, it's a Swords to Plowshares stick on a stick, and it hits each opponent. If you can bounce this thing a few times, it's oppressive. Careful not to give your opponents too much life, though. Hydra's Growth. Hydra's Growth is amazing. Hydra's Growth is a great card. Excellent +1/+1 counter. Hydra's Growth. Come on, Hydra's Growth. Hydra's Growth. Hydra's Growth. Hydra's Growth is 3 mana. It's mono green. It's an aura. And when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted permanent. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted permanent. It's $3. It's 3 mana. It's great, y'all. So the trigger is what we really want. At the beginning of each upkeep, you double the number of +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature. This is a great way to just put silly amounts of counters on our commander. Make Helga really big, make her tap for stupid amounts of mana. We can cast some really big X spells. Or if we have a big tramply boy, we can just put Hydra's Growth on that, and that's also a great way to end the game. Alright guys, we're going to do 3 more Twitch suggestions. Once again, I am BGM. Thank you for hanging out with me. If you want to head on over from TikTok to Twitch, the quality isn't shitty on Twitch. It's only blurry on TikTok. We're putting all the resources into Twitch because Twitch isn't getting banned. Here is Silverback Elder. It is our number 3 suggestion tonight. It's crazy. This card's $8. It's 5 mana. It's mono green. And I don't know what it does. I just remember that I've lost to it before. Whenever you cast a creature spell, choose one. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. That's the one. That's the one we're gonna pick. That's easily the best one. Or we can look at the top 5 cards of your library. You might play on from onto the... This card's amazing. This card's amazing. Or you gain 4 life. This card's insane. This card is so good. Why is it so good? What the hell? What the hell? This thing is so... It's got so much value. If we need life gain, it's got life gain. If we need ramp, it's ramp. If we need removal, it's that too. This card is insane. How is this only $8? This card's insane. This card is so good, y'all. Who put that in there? Ivan Jumper. Excellent suggestion. All the modes are good. There's not a bad mode on that thing. It does have lots of pips. Yeah, so it counts for devotion as well. Alright, so Eevee as Pie says Path to Exile. Path to Exile is our number 2 pick of the night. It's a rad little 1 mana instant in mono white. And it says exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic, slam it onto the battlefield tap. It's great. It's 1 mana removal at instant speed. It's hard removal because it's exiling the thing. It's great. It's one of the best removal spells we could play. 1 mana instant, get rid of the thing that's bothering you. And the last card of the night is gonna be from TikTok. Well, they said Goreclaw. We talked about Goreclaw already. Doubling Cube is our last suggestion. Doubling Cube. Alright, everybody. Doubling Cube is a 2 mana artifact. It says pay 3 mana, double the amount of each type of unspent mana you have. It's $20. This is the Transformers version. It's great. It's a great way to take a bunch of mana and turn it into a ton of mana. It's great, y'all. It's a great way to really capitalize on X spells. This version of the R-Spark this version of this card has 2 arts, 1 on each side. It's cool. I vibe. Alright, guys. That is going to be it from me tonight. Once again, I am Bigger Gayer Magic. We do live deck building. Thank you guys so much for making the jump and hanging out with me on Twitch. Thank you guys so much again. Take care. I hope you all draw the appropriate amount of lands.